name is Christopher Thacker. I'm actually a lecturer at the College of Business and Economics. I teach Business Cornerstone. Today what I'm going to talk about is actually what's called cognitive load theory and presentation design. So just in kind of thinking, how many of you initially learned to develop presentations kind of like this, and I'm hoping the time like this, right? We all started out like this, where we overload the audience with too much information. And what we know is that this type of presentation design actually destroys engagement, but it also inhibits learning. They call it actually, it's called death by PowerPoint, where we overload the audience, right? So with this, I kind of want to propose a new paradigm to you, okay? And I don't know about you, but how many of you actually remember what was on the first slide? Well, we redesigned the slide and actually just took the essential elements of the information and just boiled it down into important information, the core message. What we tend to do is we use this model called transmission. In this model of transmission, we try to send out information and we just hope that it sticks. But we know that this does not work. We need to have actually what's called transaction. Our brains really love this concept of transaction, and our brains are this wonderful, wonderful piece of technology. It's a wetware in better terms. And it's exactly like analogous to a computer. It has all of the same kind of parts and behaviors, and there's a number of theories that are going on about how the brain works and how it relates to the computer. And to kind of give you an idea of how it works, the first component of what our brains do, our brains have processing power. And what happens is this processing power is actually very, very limited. And this is one of the key ideas in terms of how our brains can actually be overwhelmed, particularly when teaching. Now, our psychology is actually closer to what we would call programming. And our psychology is actually designed to be efficient, really, really efficient, to save energy. If we didn't have this psychology to save energy, we would be dead. Because our brains actually use the same amount of energy as a 20-watt light bulb, a very dim 20-watt light bulb. So it gets overwhelmed. We don't have a lot of power. So in overcoming this and kind of thinking, our brains use predictions. They make leaps, right? And they leap through, and these predictions are really based on what we already know, right? So we go from what we already know, and when we introduce new topics, that's how we aid learning. So our brains work in this way. We have actually two channels of inputs, auditory inputs and also visual inputs. The problem is they don't really work well together. Our eyes are very, very limited, have a very low bandwidth, and in fact, the way our eyes are designed, we sacrifice a lot to be able to see, even in color, right? Colors actually limit us. Additionally, our auditory nerves, very, very limited. We hear in a very limited spectrum. But my case in point is that both of these types of channels require power, right? And we can easily overwhelm them by using poor slide design. Now, the way we learn, we have short-term memory, right? And it's very, very limited. It's like RAM in a computer. And what we're trying to do is take short-term memory and fill it into our hard drive. But this is a very, very challenging thing. We have this idea called concept load. So when we learn in our short-term memory, we only have this rule of 7 plus or minus 2 concepts. If you violate that rule, it overflows, right? We actually inhibit learning. Now, the best way to make a connection between short-term memory and long-term memory is to use what's called schema. We have schema, which is essentially a blueprint in our brain. And what you should try to encourage is actually using what we already know and apply it to what we do, what we're trying to teach. And that's like making a connection or creating a pathway for learning. So what I submit to you is encourage this, right? Encourage, simplify. So how do we do this, right? Well, what I want everyone to do, and what we're trying to kind of proselytize everybody to do, is to get away from that modality of overwhelming your students with too much information by slide. So what you should do is simplify. Keep it simple, chunk your information. Use images to the greatest effect, and also keep your text simple as well. Thank you.